55, more beautiful than she's ever been in all the years that I've known her. And sorry, I don't mean to embarrass you, but it's true. But a true pioneer in the field of athletics, starting with teenage years playing ice hockey when girls didn't play ice hockey. But she and a lot of her friends had brothers that played ice hockey, and they decided they wanted to play. And after a few weeks of broom ball that they were allowed, thank you to Mr. Borowski, they got to play ice hockey, and they ended up winning Western Massachusetts championships, I think 5 years out of 8 or something along those lines, because there were no teams in Connecticut for girls at that time. She was a three-sport, I should say, all CCIL performer. Remember the CCIL, the greatest league in the history of Connecticut sports? About 283 schools were in that conference, and they were all right near each other except for Wyndham. It was great. We used to love the CCIL. May it rest in peace. 3 sports, though, which wasn't accomplished by a lot of girls at that time. So, truly, again, an innovator, a pioneer, a leader. She got into the broadcasting field in college, and one thing that's not mentioned in the story was she started her broadcasting career rather humbly when it's Cox now, but it was Continental Cablevision came into Enfield in 1984. We didn't get cable until 84 up there. They used to have a public access channel that about 3 people would watch a month, and they did a high school game of the week, and she started her career doing color commentary for high school sports alongside some real awkward play-by-play guy named Tim Jensen. Yeah, that's where she started. Look where she ended up, look where I ended up. Pioneering. The very first female to be hired as a sportscaster in Western Massachusetts at Channel 40. Pioneer. Very first female to be hired as a sportscaster in the state of Connecticut at WTNH Channel 8. And in 1996, I believe it was, national scale. Pioneer. First woman ever to host an NBA pregame show for which she received an Emmy nomination. I hate to say this, but she's still at it after 34 years of broadcasting. In fact, yesterday she was in the Carolinas doing the ACC lacrosse championships. Now she's sitting next to Coach Braymeyer, another lacrosse legend. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to present the President's Award to Miss Leah Secondo.
Thank you to the Connecticut Sports Writers Alliance Committee. I'm incredibly honored to be alongside so many of the honorees today. It's a celebration for all of us, and we're able to celebrate with all the people that we love, care about, and it doesn't get any better than this. It's also very heartwarming to have come across so many individuals who I once covered back in the day of the Connecticut sports scene, but also played against, like Cookie Brummage from the rival high school in Enfield, and also officiated against. So it's been wonderful to see some faces that I didn't expect to see today. This area isn't ready for a woman doing sports. I'm not speaking to the media until the women leave the locker room. A woman doesn't provide our TV station credibility. You should consider a job in public relations or something else, because there aren't any women doing sports. And you really can't make any money at that anyways. Those were all the different statements that I heard along the way. That negativity didn't discourage me one bit. It fueled my fire a lot more. Much in the same way that I was fueled with a passion to competitively play sports, and probably one of the reasons that I knew back in the day that it was the right road for me, because it kept me close to the passion of sports that I loved so much. But never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that this was going to happen today. So 34 years later, I wake up every single day, and I am so appreciative and grateful of where I am and the potential that lies ahead. I wrote a letter back in the day to a then legend in the Connecticut sports scene and radio, Arnold Dean. And Arnold was kind enough to respond to my letter, and I had asked him a bunch of different things about the industry. And his suggestions to me were, just take anything that you can get once you get in the door that'll provide you, hopefully, an opportunity to get into sports. Continental Cable was one of those avenues. We did games free. It was great. It allowed me to put together a sports reel. And alongside with that, Bo Kalinsky of the Current provided me my first newspaper gig with the Hartford Current, working with Tommy, answering phones for Tommy when he called in from very late baseball games, matter of fact. And not once but twice, Bo hired me back after leaving Channel 8 in a very difficult situation, and I will forever be grateful to Bo for that. I kept a shoebox full of rejection letters also to inspire me along the way. A lot of my colleagues did that back in the day. Now everybody just puts things on their cell phones, like you saw a couple of the speeches being done on their cell phones today. But one night at Channel 40 in Springfield, Mass., I was working the assignment desk, because that's how I started in the business, $3.75 an hour with my college degree. I was so excited. But the sports guy got sick that night, and his misfortune was my good fortune. And the news director, the third one that came through, Roger Ball, allowed me the opportunity to do sports. I did my first live shot. It was a UMass basketball game. I'll never forget it because they were warming up right behind me, and I got bonked on the head with a basketball in the middle of a live shot. But those reps on a regular basis allowed me to put together a demo reel, and the phone rang. Channel 8 called. Bob Picozzi and Larry Manning, who was the news director at the time, thought it was a great idea for a woman to do sports. So my dream became a reality. I was in my home state, close to my family and friends, and doing sports. There are two gentlemen that came down here from the Boston area today. They're both very successful now as videographers in the Boston market, covering sports. And they really helped me out back in the day. Al Goebel and Walter McGraw. I was typically paired with Al at Channel 40 and Walter from day one at Channel 8. Guys, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your Boston sports scene to come down here today. You always made sure my hair was in place. You always captured great video in your viewfinders. And you always had my back like brothers. We had some great conversations in the car about not only sports, but time and deadlines, and I'll never forget those journeys. So thank you so much. The Enfield girls hockey team, as Tim mentioned, is part of the honor today. 15 or 20 young girls with aspirations to play hockey. Now, did we ever think that we were going to be pioneers? Absolutely not. Not at that age. We just wanted to play hockey like many of the brothers did. I didn't have a brother, but I was in with the right group. It was kind of around the Craig Janney time in Enfield. So we had a super team. We had success, but we also had to play and practice at like 5 a.m. in the morning. My coaches, Mr. Borowski, Mrs. Chappett, Mrs. Borowski is also here today. They pushed for us to play ice hockey, and I want to thank you guys as well. Some of the best memories that I have, probably learned the most about playing sports from Mr. Borowski especially, and we also had a lot of conversations on the golf course after that, when our hockey days were over. Love you guys. Really appreciate you taking the time to be here as well. The broadcast industry has definitely changed from my days in the 80s, and the local market in many areas have gone really, in some cases, down to no sports, or if you're lucky, maybe 2 or 3 minutes. But the surgence of UConn women's basketball back in the day expanded my road in broadcasting, and I've discussed that numerous times with Gino Oriema, and I've thanked him. Without UConn women's basketball, WTIC radio, CPTV TV station, and their foresight to figure out that women's basketball really had a place, and that opened up other TV stations around the country to understand the importance that it was a valuable product. And with that, it opened up more doors for women like myself to have a chance at doing sports and my longevity as well. So I moved from color analyst to sidelines to anchor desk to play-by-play, and TV executives from the regional sports networks from around the country, including the Celtics and USA Field Hockey and the ACC. They have meant so much to my opportunities, and I wish they all could be here today to thank them so much, because without them, 34 years wouldn't have happened. I'm very fortunate to have grown up in a dual parent family. So many times we don't see that anymore. And my mom and dad attended every single game, one way or another. Thank goodness to cable that came to town in '84. Now they're watching me on TV. For those long ride home, I always call them on the way, whether it's to the airport or driving across some state. And my mom is quick to critique, that I have, you had hair up. I said, really didn't like that dress. Yesterday when I called her from the ACCs, it was, your hair was flat. Along with my friend Robin. Like, thanks guys, can we talk about something else? And when my dad was alive, which actually today was 6 months from his passing, he would say, so where are you again? Are you in Florida or Texas, or where are you? So my parents have been incredibly awesome and supportive. While sometimes they didn't understand what I was doing, they always supported me. The same could be said for my Aunt Regina, my Uncle Myron, who are here today, as well as my Aunt Rose, my godparents. Without them, their support, let me stay at their house and craft sometimes, it really helped me to progress in the industry, and I thank you so much. As well as my surprise, the Musumechis and the Morans, who really threw me off. Love so much for you guys to be here. Robin, you've been my best friend for 43 years. You've been my cheerleader. You've dressed me. You've scolded me for what I've worn on air. But it's been a great ride since the beginning of the dream. And I'm so glad that you've been along for that ride with me. And I couldn't be more grateful, especially the last 10 years, when my mother and father, their health declined. You kind of took over at 27 Southview Street when I'm 1,300 miles away or 5,000 miles away, so that I could go on and pursue my broadcast dreams. I thank you so much. I'm forever grateful, and I love you, my dear friend.
Love you.
Every generation opened doors for the next generation, and I'm proud to be a part of that select group of broadcasters who have aspirations to now move on. I'm a firm believer, with every door that closes, that the next one, yes, it is harder to open, but you have to have that desire and passion to do so. And all you need to do is to look at our town of Enfield. Finally, it's been 42 years, and we finally have a girls hockey team at the high school level. These young ladies finished runners-up in the state to Darien this year. But they are now the pioneers of what's to come. So hopefully, I hope the doors continue to open at even the executive levels for women in sportscasting, and that there is an increase in women's sports in games at the executive level and on television. Thank you all so much.
Quite often, those who attend the Gold